December 2025. BP's Executive Vice President calls it an excellent year. 7 major oil and gas projects delivered. 150,000 new barrels per day flowing. 5 of 7 projects ahead of schedule. Same month, same planet, the United States celebrates its first ever grid-connected wave energy system. The output? Enough to power a few dozen homes. One side of this race is sprinting. The other is crawling. And almost nobody is paying attention. I'm Luke McMillan, and this is Voice for the Blue. Today, I'm going to show you the competition that will determine whether we hit net zero or blow past it. Fossil fuel expansion versus marine renewables. Billions versus millions. Delivery versus promises. By the end of this, you're going to be angry. Good. You should be. Before we get into the numbers, let's get clear on what marine renewables actually are, because this stuff barely gets covered. The ocean is constantly moving. Waves roll in, tides flow back and forth with clockwork reliability. Wind blows stronger and more consistently offshore than it does on land. All of that movement is energy, harvestable, clean, endless energy. Wave power captures the up and down motion of ocean swells using floating devices or seafloor systems. Tidal stream power works like underwater wind turbines spinning in the predictable current created by the moon's pull. Floating offshore wind does what it sounds like. Wind turbines mounted on platforms that float in deep water where the wind is stronger and more consistent than near the coast. These aren't science fiction. They work. They've been tested. Some are already generating power. The technology exists. So why aren't we using it at scale? That's the question. Hold on to it. Now let's look at what the other side of this race has been doing. BP, the British oil giant, hit a milestone in 2025 that they're openly celebrating. They call it 7 in 25. 7 major oil and gas projects brought online in a single year, spread across 5 countries. Let me talk you through just a few. In Egypt, BT expanded its Raven gas field with new subsea wells, online ahead of schedule. In Trinidad and Tobago, they fired up not 1 but 2 new gas developments. Cypre in April, Mento in May. Off the coast of West Africa, their massive Great Tortue Anaheim project shipped its first liquefied natural gas cargo. That's a $4.8 billion project in water nearly 3 kilometers deep. In the Gulf of Mexico, BP brought online 2 expansions to existing platforms, both ahead of schedule. In the UK North Sea, they restarted the Murlach oil field, squeezing more fossil fuels from infrastructure that's been sitting there for decades. By December, BP's Executive Vice President was calling it an excellent year. Their words, 7 projects, roughly 150,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day in new production, delivered on time or early. Shell, meanwhile, started pumping oil from its Whale project in the Gulf of Mexico in January. That single platform can produce 100,000 barrels a day. And just last month, Shell and Ecuador merged their UK North Sea operations into a new company called Adura. It's now the largest oil and gas producer in UK waters, over 140,000 barrels a day. Their stated goal? Maximise the remaining value from these fields. This is what a well-funded, politically supported energy sector looks like. Clear targets, rapid execution, results. Now let's look at the other side. In September 2025, the United States got its first grid-connected wave energy system. The first ever. A small pilot project at the Port of Los Angeles using floaters along a breakwater to capture the motion of Pacific swells. It generates kilowatts, not megawatts, not gigawatts, kilowatts, enough to power a handful of homes. Don't misunderstand me, this is a genuine milestone. The technology works. A US congresswoman called it incredible potential. California passed a bill requiring a statewide wave energy roadmap. There's even a proposed federal bill for $1 billion in marine energy investment over 5 years. Proposed, not passed, not funded, just proposed. In the UK, tidal stream energy is further along. Scotland's Maiden Array in the Pentland Firth is the world's first tidal installation. The government has committed ring-fence funds for tidal projects in its renewable energy auctions. Around 120 megawatts of tidal capacity is planned for deployment by 2030. That sounds promising until you realise that 120 megawatts is roughly what one medium-sized gas plant produces, and it won't be built for another 5 years. The UK's Energy Minister, Michael Shanks, said last year that the wave sector is still emerging, but holds promise. Promise. Emerging. Potential. Compare that language to BP's excellent year of actually delivering projects. Here's where we need to talk about money, because money is where promises become real or don't. Global investment in upstream oil and gas in 2023 was approximately $500 billion. Global public investment in all ocean energy, wave and tidal combined, was $710 million. That's not a typo. 500 billion versus 710 million. The fossil fuel industry received roughly 700 times more investment than marine renewables. The US Department of Energy just launched what it calls its largest ever wave energy funding program, $112.5 million over 5 years. BP approved a single new Gulf of Mexico development this year worth $5 billion. One project, 44 times more than America's entire wave energy program. The UK's annual support for tidal stream projects is less than £20 million. BP's 7 2025 projects? Billions. This is not a race, this is a marathon runner competing against someone in a Ferrari. And here's what genuinely infuriates me. Every major government in the UK, the US, the EU has made public commitments to reach net zero emissions. They've signed agreements, they've made speeches, they've set targets. Yet in 2025, the government is still offering tax incentives for new North Sea drilling. Companies could offset windfall taxes by investing in more oil extraction. The US held new offshore oil lease sales in the Gulf of Mexico this year. American crude production hit an all-time record, 13.6 million barrels per day. Record oil production in the middle of a climate crisis, while marine renewable technologies sit in pilot phase, waiting for the funding and political certainty that fossil fuels have enjoyed for a century. This is the gap between what governments say and what governments do. Net zero requires us to stop burning fossil fuels, yet we're actively expanding fossil fuel production while treating ocean energy like a science experiment that might get funding if there's budget left over. Marine renewables aren't a silver bullet. No technology is. But wave, tidal, and floating wind present an enormous, untapped resource. The ocean covers 70% of this planet. It's always moving. The energy is there, waiting to be harvested. Tidal power is predictable to the minute, decades in advance. Wave energy could complement solar and wind, providing power when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing. Industry analysts suggest tidal energy costs could fall by 80% by 2035 if deployment scales up. The UK already leads the world in tidal stream technology. This could be an export industry, a source of jobs, and a genuine piece of the net zero puzzle. But none of that happens without investment, without policy certainty, without governments treating marine energy with the same seriousness they give to oil rigs. So who's winning? You already know. Fossil fuels, by every metric that counts. Marine renewables aren't losing because the technology doesn't work. It works. They're losing because governments fund oil extraction at 700 times the rate they fund ocean energy. They're losing because political will is a finite resource and it's being spent propping up an industry that's supposed to be winding down. The physics is on our side. The engineering is proven. What's missing is pressure. Public pressure, informed pressure, the kind that comes from people who actually understand what's happening and won't accept the gap between promises and action. That's where you come in. If you're still listening, you're not the kind of person who hears this and shrugs. So do something with it. Talk about it, share it, ask your MP or your congressperson why tidal energy gets pocket change while oil companies get tax breaks. I'm Luke Macmillan, and this is Voice for the Blue. But if you want to go deeper, if you want the full picture on ocean policy, marine science, and the decisions being made right now that will lock in our future, that's what Ocean Rising is for. It's my weekly newsletter. No algorithms, no clickbait, just the intelligence you need to understand what's actually happening to our oceans and what you can do about it. Thanks for listening.